Thank you everybody for joining us for this panel, and we're happy to share with you all we can say and all the expertise we have gotten in the past few years regarding storytelling. As you know, we're here to talk about not all French suck at storytelling, but you seriously need to level up. And with me today, we have Alexis Khouri. Alexis Khouri has been in charge for algorithmics of the US office, and they have had tremendous success over the past years. They were acquired something like a year or a year and a half ago by Adobe, and is now in charge of all the 3D part there regarding sales and strategy. We also have with us Bertrand Schmitt, and Bertrand Schmitt is a co-founder and chairman of App Any. App Any is a leading analytics app for I don't know how many, but I'm sure you'll be able to tell us how many users and apps in the world. Both of them have great things to say about storytelling and why it's important. We all know it's important, obviously. We all know we should use it. We should use it to increase sales. We should use it as well when recruiting. We should use it to get funding. But there's a big difference between knowing it, trying to do it, and being able to do it successfully. And thank you, Alexis. Thank you, Bertrand, to be here with us today. Really appreciate that. Myself, I'm Yohan Stern. I'm co-president of French Tech for Los Angeles. And I've also founded a group in digital marketing and technology and HR. And to start and kick off the ball, I'm going to ask a first question to Bertrand, and this is more about what you can share about storytelling in the US and especially in marketing. What you have learned and what's the difference between France and the US, or what you think is key and to be successful here when using storytelling in marketing. Thank you, Bertrand.
Yeah, sure, my pleasure. So yeah, me, I done my MBA in the US. I actually majored in marketing at Wharton. I spent 8 years in the US, but I also spent 6 years in China. So I have not just a US perspective, but a global perspective on this. One thing that is clear when you come to the US, and at least you realize step by step, is that this is the land of Hollywood. And you, Yohan, you know that, you live in LA. But that's something to keep in mind when you think about storytelling. This is the land of Hollywood. People have been, since they were very young, used to the Star Wars stories, the Batman movies, Superman movies. So my point is that storytelling is at the heart of America. You could argue that that's the American dream itself. So that's something you have to step up. You have to step up to the next level. And when you come from Europe, when you come from Asia, it might be pretty different and pretty new to go to this level of storytelling, and even acting in a way, because at the end of the day, this whole thing. So you can look at storytelling from multiple angles. I think we have Alexis here. We'll talk more about sales, BizDev, so maybe I can share a few points on other points around funding, financing, marketing, or recruiting. But for me, at the end of the day, here what you have to think about is that at the beginning, it's a lot about the vision. If you are unable to share a very attractive vision with your audience, you are mostly guaranteed to lose your audience very early. And your audience can be new hires, could be investors, could be clients. So I think that's a big part of the game. If you come from France, from other countries, you might think more from a product perspective. You might think more from a technical perspective. But here you usually have to start with the big picture. If you don't start with that, you will lose your audience because they don't. That's their base expectation, and they are not really going to understand really what the end game. So thinking and talking about the end game, I think in your storytelling is huge. Another piece is probably around. I was talking about And that's something that you see in marketing in the US done very well. You're presented with a hero, someone who might be on a quest or whatever. But my point is that your marketing has to think to follow that type of approach. Even in B2B, when you look at B2B tech in the US, it's very amazing how it's not just about presenting use case, showcasing successful logos of big companies using your product. It's showing the individual in that company, in that client, who made that decision and is using this product day to day, and making this person a hero, an inspiration to follow if you are still undecided to buy the product. So for me, storytelling, it's around vision, it's around having a hero, an aspiration, so something more practical. And at the end of the day, you can execute a lot here, because when you think about it, you could argue that some companies were mostly about the vision, at least for some time. Think about a Tesla, a WeWork, an Uber. And so you can raise a lot. You can develop a business big time with a vision. You will find people willing to follow you, employees, investors. But at the same time, at some point, reality will kick in. So storytelling, yes, but up to a point. We have seen with WeWork as well, it can fizzle down very fast on the opposite direction.
If you want to...
Yeah. So actually, I second most of what Bertrand just said. What's interesting here, so definitely storytelling is super important in the US. I'm just going to give a few other examples. First of all, so I've been educated in France, where indeed we have a big emphasis on analysis, technical demonstration. We are laying out things in a very academic way. While when I'm looking at my daughter, for instance, my older daughter, she's been in an American school for a few years, and actually, surprisingly, even when she was in kindergarten, she would actually make a verbal presentation in front of the other kids. So even in kindergarten, they're really really pushed to actually be able to express themselves verbally and tell a story. And it's really about telling stories. And Bertrand, you were mentioning indeed that this is a big thing here. Sometimes go to extremes, such as maybe you've seen, you heard about the story. There is a show actually on Netflix, called The Inventor, about this company who basically faked a new treatment for blood analysis. For years, was valued at billions of dollars. And the tantrum of the founder is a woman called Elizabeth Holmes. She was saying, "Fake it until you make it." So basically, she was just making stories. And obviously, she went to prison. She was and so on. So it's really not a good idea.
And let's do the same. Let's not do the same thing, right?
Exactly.
This was fraud. Yes, this is it to an extreme.
It's fraud. So we shouldn't definitely go that far. However, indeed, coming from a French academic background, I would say a European academic background, it was really interesting to see. And Bertrand, you mentioned the fact that French are very much about products. Yes, they believe in products. They believe that their products is going to be the best. That this new feature will actually make it a success. That there are going to be a D-Day when the world will know about this new feature. They're going to buy it. This is only part of the story, one piece of the puzzle. And telling the story around it is extremely important. As you say, America is the land of TV shows. Everything is romanced. Everything is a story. I mean, if you look at sports, for instance, in the US, it's very different than Europe. The NBA is a story, is actually a show. Everything is exaggerated. Everything is pushing a lot the story aspect of things. So the question is, when you're an entrepreneur, either in a startup or a scale up, how can you actually find the right balance between a good storytelling and something that is really efficient when it comes to marketing and sales? I'm mostly working in business development, so my perspective is very much about business development. but I'm going to share a few examples on how to improve your skills when it comes to storytelling.
Display something now?
So we can. So we don't have much time. So I tried to really focus on what is the most important, and the thing that I didn't realize until a few years ago is that what people underestimate most of the time is the amount of preparation that it requires to actually make a good presentation. It's not just creating a slide deck, a master slide deck. It's really about having, so the way we've been working with allegorithmic a little bit, and much more now that I'm part of a big American corporation, is that you have hundreds of presentations, hundreds and hundreds of presentations that you can use as Lego blocks. So when you're meeting, when you have a meeting with a customer, so again, this is very much business development, B2B. Here I'm talking in the perspective of a big account, but this also applies for smaller accounts, especially when you're smaller. It doesn't much apply for, I would say, pure mainstream audience. However, you have to prepare much more than you think. So first of all, it's not one presentation for all. It's one presentation for one customer. And to build this presentation, you need to have an efficient pipeline of building presentation. So hundreds, sometimes thousands of different presentations where you can pull in the slides and create a new deck that will look as if it has been made on purpose. And this is taking a lot of time. So of course you have to prepare all this material, but this can be done step by step. And then you have to really think this through. So how do you build your presentation? Then you have to rehearse. And rehearsing is something also, it changes everything. Even if you are rehearsing once, you're going to realize the number of mistakes of the things you could have said better. Even better, you should rehearse with other people that will provide you feedback. But typically, when you have a presentation that is fairly important, and actually for almost every presentation, if you should rehearse. And when I say rehearse, now we have the technology. You can record yourself, you can hear you speaking. You should take into account the feedback. So rehearsing actually solves already a lot of issues. Then the second thing is that before a meeting, you need to understand who is your audience. Because most of the time, the people, they want to hear something specific. And maybe I can show you the difference, of audience you can reach. So can I pull the presentation, Yohan, or should you do it?
Can do it, no worries.
Okay, so I didn't have a lot of time to prepare that, so I'm just going to show you examples of some things. Actually, it's the same product, almost the same context for three very different audiences. So I'm going to show you the first slide. So the first kind of audience would be much more mainstream audience. When you're talking to a mainstream audience, or for a conference, or for people that are journalists, for instance. Journalists. So I'm really talking about mainstream people that don't know the details of a product. They just want to hear a story. In that case, and you can go on the next slide, it's mostly about big pictures, visuals that looks really nice with one sentence, huge fonts, and the whole presentation will be like that. You're going to have 30 slides that will look the same with just one big message and one big image. Regardless, just disregard the message itself. But this is just the layout. And if you look at most of the visionary presentations, people that are telling stories, most of the time, very small amount of words and lots of visuals, big visuals on the whole slide. Then you have another audience for the next slide, which will be C-level audience, which are mostly interested, very business-oriented, very result-oriented. And you're going to talk about ROI. So this is actually the same message as before. So before we were talking about the vision of building a 3D ecosystem with nice visuals, and now we're just talking about the results. So typically cutting costs, increasing customer engagement, whatever it is. But we're talking about charts, quotes, results, direct benefits. And this is the kind of message that C-level people are mostly interested in, especially CIOs, CTOs, CMOs. And the third kind of audience is the end user. When you have an audience of people that are actually going to use your products every day, then you can really deep dive in the technical aspect of things. And French people are really good at that. But it shouldn't be 100% focused on this, especially if you're in your audience, those are not end users. So as you can see, for the very same message or products, there are completely different sets of messages and narratives. So this is why my main point is really you should over-prepare your presentation to actually have a nice storytelling, because storytelling is actually what will catch the attention of your audience, and every audience is specific.
And do you have any advice to give for people to learn how to prepare more?
Oh, I mean, it's mostly a mindset. I mean, it's just that you don't do this last minute, and it's really most of the time it requires iteration with other people, other people that will hear you how you talk, and actually also I see that there are lots of foreign people in this chat. You also realize that you have lots of things you say sometimes that don't sound right, or you are repeating the same words all the time, and you should find ways to use synonyms. Say the same idea several times using different words, different sentences. And this is not an easy thing when you're not a native speaker, but this is the kind of things that will actually make your story much more compelling.
And maybe to both of you, but let's say you are a scale-up or startup, and you know your offering, you know your product, and you think you know exactly what its benefits, why people should take it, and what it will. But how do you build the story behind? How do you do that? Like, how do you go from a product or a service to building a story? It's maybe more like on the marketing side of it, of the story, but how do you go from that offering to a real story? What do you think of that?
So Bertrand, maybe you want to intervene?
On the story itself, on the story development?
Yeah, like you have a product, I don't know, let's say, Apani, it's going to analyze audience for apps, and it's a product. And or other companies, I don't know. But you are wondering how to create your story. What will be, the vision, the purpose, and
I think that actually, as Alexis said, I mean, it starts with your audience. You cannot have the same message for everyone. So you need to understand clearly, am I talking to investors? Am I talking to employees? Am I talking to candidates? Am I talking to customers? And even among customers, am I talking to American ones, Asian ones? Am I talking to the gaming industry? Am I talking to the regular app developer? So what is really true is that you have to see, I mean, practically you end up having that usually big library of decks and slides that you can adjust with all of this. But I think you have to start first with your audience when you start to prepare for your story. I would say overall you have to have a corporate vision. So you might start with that so that people have a better sense of what context you are talking in it. And after that, it will be more focused on exactly this product. And I think we go back to the vision of the product, about the product. And then you will go down deeper and deeper, depending on what is your audience. I think Alexis put it very well. Some will prefer graphs, some will prefer image. Some will prefer very detailed product description because they are your power users and they want to go into the details right away. That's what they care about.
Let me be sorry, Bertrand, but let me be a little more specific. I was not, referring to how to adapt, because I really think that it's great points and it's very useful, and I mean, you are never too prepared for sure. And I was talking about, you have your idea, you have your product or service, and you need to be able to, to go from that to your main story, like your what will be the story you want to say, and it's not as easy, I think, like some people, they are going to create a chat and they are going to think that the story behind it will change the world, And in my experience, you need to be able to connect to emotions as well. You need to be able to, it's not only about, rationals, it's also about connecting to emotions, to what will really be important to people, what will make them follow you through, like be it your, employees, your clients.
Yeah, so I mean, great point. I still think it starts with the audience. Your investors might not care so much about the emotional side, for instance. But yes, you're right that at some point you want to connect. And again, for instance, B2B would be very different from B2C. B2B would be more pragmatic about benefit of your products. But even there, you will see that you have to inspire. So connecting to emotions, you're totally right. Inspiring people. I think one of the usually when people want to laugh at Silicon Valley, for instance, they will always make fun of the fact that everyone is here to change the world. And that's at some point that will be the issue if you keep doing what everybody else is doing, or if you become so not specific that every vision looks more or less the same. So I believe you have to connect with your audience. You have to understand what your audience is looking for, and at the same time, I certainly believe you have to stay true to yourself and your company DNA. You cannot be this average company that is doing the average of everything and is just following the herd. You need to have some very strong opinion as well on topic. If I take an Apple, for instance, yes, it's about changing the world, but in very different ways. It's a very interesting intersection of the arts and the science, where some of their competitors are just about the science. So I think you have to play that storytelling game very, very carefully, and it has to stay true to your DNA as well as a company and as a CEO or founder. You have to be careful. So think carefully, work well, connect with your audience, but also stay true to yourself and your company, and make sure what you are talking about is adapted to your audience. I will also add one thing. If you are talking to investors specifically, to journalists, you have to think very carefully about the vision from a market sizing perspective. You need to show a vision of a really huge market. And obviously, this has to be connected to the truth, somewhat, to the reality of the opportunity, but you have to do that. It's like an Uber. It's a transportation company, geared toward changing transportation all over the world. It's not a small mission. It's not a small vision. And I think that part is quite critical. This is the expectation here in the US. This is a continent-sized country. Expectations are big. And if you're the only one without big expectations, big vision, it will be trouble.
So thank you, Bertrand. It's time, for Q&A. So to summarize that, I'd say, let's be authentic and be ambitious. I think that's, so Armel Levy is going to join us, and she selected some questions from people attending the session. Armel from French Tech Los Angeles, thank you for being with us too. So what question did you choose?
I think the first question that we can see now is maybe who is the best team to help you building your storytelling within your company? Because it looks like, do we need to have is it a French-American team? I mean, what do you recommend for those French company entering the market?
So that's very interesting. There is a baseline, which is indeed you need to have. You probably need to have American people in your team for sure. At least a few of them. So that's not, first of all, that's not mandatory. So in my experience, which is not it's anecdotal, obviously. Most of we had much more trouble working with American BizDev than French or at least European BizDev, because this is very much, there is one thing that is extremely important, is that it's the culture of the company. And it really depends on the culture of the company. And sometimes when you're a good business developer, needs to be connected to the product, needs to be connected to the other people in the company. And the truth is that if you can find a French person that has lived in the US or speaks English really fluently, that's the best case scenario. Meaning that if they can have both. If you have to choose, I would say first start with people you trust, French people. And when you start to scale, then you can have people with people that are native. But in terms of managers, I personally would recommend to have people that you really trust, that are really close to the culture, to manage those people. People on the field, definitely native people, that's better. But it's not as obvious as people might think. And also the language itself, of course, there is a baseline. You need to have a certain level in English to be able to do that. It's not required to have a perfect American accent. Absolutely not. If you speak well English, actually, it's sometimes even well perceived to have a foreign accent. People are actually listening to you more carefully because they know you're not native, that you're making a specific effort to learn the language. And it gives a story for your background as well. So when you're saying, okay, for instance, just when you say, on my end, for instance, when I said that I'm French, first of all, I said I'm called Alexis. So people are laughing because they were expecting a female. So they say, oh, you're not a female, because most of the people in America that are called Alexis are female. So first of all, I have a story. I can talk about my origins. They're actually excited about that. And then, of course, you need to have a very good level, grammatical level, and so on. But it's not mandatory. And actually, in my company, most of the business developers are actually either French or French that have been living for a few years in an English-speaking country. So, unfortunately, I hate this kind of answers, but it depends. It depends. If you have the opportunity to find a good American salespeople, yes, but they are. I'm trying to find the right way to express it, but I would say I've seen the mindset of business developer in the US is really about they're more interested in the short-term revenues they're going to generate, and they're always going to be open-minded to go in other companies. And I've been struck to see that the turnover in the US companies for salespeople is really high, much higher than in France, for sure. So that's the only warning I would say.
Yeah, I might come.
Another warning. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, I might come from a different perspective. I built a company as a global company from day one. I actually started our business in China, and our exec team was American, British, French, Singaporean. So we had every nationality out there. So I will partially agree to that. I think it goes back to what's the core DNA of your company. If it's true 100% French, that's probably a different perspective than if you started somewhat differently in terms of team, of exec team. I will say one thing I've seen on the field, however, is not a lot of success from companies who just parachute people from their home country all over the world. I've seen a lot of Finnish companies, for instance, throwing Finnish people leading sales in Japan, in China, in the US, everywhere. That was not giving a good impression of the company, I think, to clients ultimately, because there was a field of disconnect between the client needs and what the company was really trying to achieve. But also it was creating a glass ceiling for the staff, for the local staff. They will all think, hey, I'm not from the home country of that company. I'm not from the HQ. What's my opportunity to grow? And what it means is that you end up with people in these different countries who you might not get the best. They will simply think there is no opportunity for growth. So I would be very careful with that approach. And us personally, we always had local people or binational people who had both nationalities to head every country where we are operating and every region where we were operating. We wanted to show our clients we understand them, we are local, they can treat us as local, and that was very strong when we had to fight local competitors. We were not seen as a foreign company in the local countries. We were seen as a local actor and someone who had invested significantly to understand the culture of the country. So obviously, every company, different DNA, different story. But I would advise people to be very careful there and think about the long term of how you are incentivizing the workforce, how you are making them excited to join you. You have to think from an American perspective. Why would they join your company versus some other companies versus an American company? And if the first thing they see is a glass ceiling, that might not work so well for you in terms of finding the right people, or you will have to play with a very, very limited talent pool.
Armel, another question, because I see that we are close to the end.
I think maybe you could give us like maybe the best like a success story in your story, like a great success you had with a storytelling. Maybe both of you.
So one piece of advice that goes in this direction is that, so again, this is very much B2B oriented. Sorry about that. I'm not targeting billions of people, more millions of people with what I'm doing. But the best way to write a good story for your audience is beforehand find an ambassador in the company you're targeting. And this is not it's not that complicated. It's not that complicated. Now we can reach out to people with LinkedIn and so on, but find an ambassador and have a very casual discussion with this person. So, having lunch or having a call, a video call, and understanding what's the current priority for the company. And make this person your ambassador. Make this person your ambassador and write the story with him. That's the best. That's, again, a way to maximize the chance of success. So sometimes this person is actually not the right person, but in most cases, if this guy has some kind of leadership position, or if he's like a power user of your solutions, he will be blunt with you, and it will be in his interest to give you the right information, because eventually this guy could be the person promoting your solution internally, and using that, he could be promoted. He could have actually an ownership on something, and everybody's looking for ownership. So typically you're coming with a brand new solution that is the only one aware about. He knows how to use it. He's doing a great presentation internally. Then he's going to become your ambassador. He might be even present when you're doing the meeting. He would intervene and share his experience, his positive experience. This is perfect, because then you already have a spy. You already have someone internally who will be pleading your case. And again, this is all about preparation. I was mentioning the fact that you need to prepare and rehearse. And this is also a piece of the puzzle that is extremely important. And in my case, the vast majority of successes with pure American companies who actually were, back in time when I was at Allegorithmic, we were coming from Clermont-Ferrand. Nobody knew about us, and we were completely unknown. And the way we got into, back in time in the video game industry, was by creating this ambassador network. And also, very interesting, is that there are lots of really good French people working in those companies. You can reach out to those French people. We have the chance to have a great technical skills. We have got lots of great engineers, great researchers that are actually all over the place in American companies. So you can reach out to those French people, make them their ambassadors. Most of the time, they've been in the US for 25 years. They're almost Americans, and they can really help you. And in the vast majority of cases, they were fairly well intended. Like every French people, at first they were skeptical, but when you managed to convince them, they became your best ambassadors. And this is really something that is one of the key aspects of successful business development for B2B.
Yeah, I agree with that. I guess in B2C, these people will be called fans, super fans, or the like. So I agree. I think in terms of storytelling, I talk about vision. We talk about connecting to the audience. I think at the end of the day, being able to share examples that customers can really relate to. I'm talking B2B as well. In terms of successful implementation, successful use cases, successful benefits in the same geography, in the same industry, the same type of company size, and you can be very, very practical about it, can help you win big pots. People want to hear how others who are similar to them have been successful with your products and how at some point. That if you can pepper your storytelling with examples that are really directly relevant, that will make a huge difference at some point, because there is only so much you can do with just the vision or the emotion side. At some point, you will need to showcase how it has already worked somewhere else that is a very similar place.
Thank you. And we have still a few minutes left. And one other thing, advice or that you want to share before we end this panel? Kind of the last one, because we're supposed to end in 3 minutes.
Maybe I can share. It's not directly connected to storytelling, but I would advise people, if it can be relevant to their business model, to think very carefully about. I know a lot of companies are trying to go into SaaS, software as a service, in terms of business model and delivering their product. I mean, Adobe made a huge switch a few years ago in that direction. I will also highlight that freemium is a key part of the game. A lot of questions around marketing, sales are extremely simplified if you are in a freemium type of business model. Customers can try your product for free. They don't need to call you. Users can get convinced of the value of the product and the company before meeting any salesperson. You can have word of mouth spreading in the industry, people popping up as ambassadors without you doing any work for that, simply because of the magic of having a free product. So I will ask the audience and people to think carefully about having a part of the product that is free and therefore some sort of freemium business model, if it's adapted to their company and to their DNA. And I'm talking about freemium, it could be around open source, depending on the business model. But I think that's a key part of the game that help tremendously in terms of international development. I don't think you want to be playing the game, the SaaS games that was played 15 or 10 years ago. We are in 2020.
Alexis, do you want to say something?
Maybe when it comes to, we were saying that sometimes storytelling turns into romance and sometimes even lies. We should obviously never do that. And if there is one thing that works in the long run is honesty. Even if you fail, meaning that let's start when you're co-developing stuff, you're in co-innovation, and sometimes it fails. Sometimes you don't manage to deliver. As long as you're being honest and you're being true about the whole process, this is the only way in the long run to make it work. Sometimes trying to work around reality and so on can work in the very short term, and it's true. And sometimes even some companies manage to raise lots of money or even getting acquired.
Alexis, I'm sorry to stop you there. And it's just that it's time, and we'll try to be careful with time. It's okay. And everybody, if you want to talk more, don't hesitate. Oh,
okay.
I think we're back to we are good. Thank you for everybody else going to say, and we can don't hesitate to reach out, and we are here, and we'll be happy to help.
Thank you very much.